Equalitarianism. One of the greatest challenges modern diverse societies face is grappling with demographic differences and socially valued traits. And so far, the West is not handling this challenge well. Demographic groups such as race, sex, or population, etc., are different from each other. Men are stronger than women. Some of these differences are likely on traits that society values and rewards, such as intelligence and impulse control. This is a challenge for modern society because many believe that a disparate outcome is ipso facto evidence of discrimination. Of course, the United States, to take one example, has a long legacy of racism, so it's not unreasonable for people to worry about discrimination. However, it is important to realize that disparities are no more evidence of discrimination than correlations are of causation. They suggest that there could be discrimination, but aren't dispositive. In many cases, the default hypothesis should be group differences. It would be very surprising if human populations were exactly the same on all socially valued traits. For one example, African Americans dominate the NBA and are overrepresented in the NFL, and that likely reflects differences in athleticism. Similarly, Northeast Asians are overrepresented at elite universities, and that likely reflects differences in intelligence and self-control. I use these examples because it's hard to suggest that they're a result of discrimination. In fact, it might go the other way. For a long time, academics and the media have silenced and censored evidence of such differences. Even discussing the disparities, such as in crime, test scores, visual spatial rotation, is often enough to get somebody in trouble unless they immediately invoke bigotry. Among progressives, this attitude and bias against any information would suggest that demographic groups are different, especially in ways that appear to favor these privileged groups, such as white men, is particularly strong. We call it equalitarianism. We have loads of evidence that support this contention, and I'll leave it down here at the bottom. But instead, for now, I'll note that progressives have succeeded in creating an environment in which people aren't allowed to discuss these issues. Academics in the elite media have cocooned their bigotry causes almost all disparities narrative from criticism by punishing those who would criticize it, by slandering them, harassing them, and sometimes threatening their jobs. And honestly, they've been quite successful. Talk to academics and media figures who have heretical views on these issues, and they'll tell you how terrified they are to broach them in public. Equalitarianism is like an orthodox religion that protects itself from challenges by removing heretics. Meanwhile, none of this actually fixes the problems or allows our society to mature. Because if the cause of a disparity is not bigotry, then the claim that it is will not solve the problem and will, in fact, create hatred, envy, and divisiveness. What's important to note here is that human equality is a metaphysical doctrine. It's a principle about ethical value and dignity, not an empirical hypothesis. Humans are obviously not the same, and that is laughable to even think that they are. Individuals differ in intelligence, beauty, self-control, athleticism, etc., and we understand this. We don't talk about it gratuitously or invidiously. We do it to discuss it, and we do discuss it. Many scientists study it. They don't think it means Jefferson was wrong. There's no reason we can't apply this principle to demographic groups. They likely also differ on many traits, and that's fine. Scientists should study these differences and talk about them judiciously. Again, not gratuitously or invidiously. But to do this, we need to stop pretending that anti-sexism or anti-racism requires that all groups are the same. So long as these laudable goals seem tied to empirical hypothesis, people will worry about the dangers of refuting the hypothesis. Racism is wrong, not because populations are the same, but because it is irrational and because it violates important norms about treating people as individuals and not as token representations of their demographic groups. The same holds for sexism and homophobia. The more we shift to focus this important truth, the better we'll be able to address the demographic differences and actually get to the bottom of the causes of these disparities. It might allow us to avoid momentarily unpleasant feelings if we posit that all inequalities are socially caused, but it won't allow us to solve the attendant problems. So eventually and ultimately, it'll hurt the groups it is supposed to protect. I don't see any evidence that we can't handle this task, but I see a lot of evidence that radical progressives are going to continue to silence these discussions and slander the people who promote them. The only solution to that is to stand up together, to work as a group to denounce such tactics, because this is a collective action problem. It's better for everybody if we address these topics. However, it is worse for each individual. Therefore, most of us keep waiting for the martyr, the person who tries to broach these topics, then takes the heat and the social punishment. We do this for various reasons, some of them legitimate and some not. But we can't solve the problem like this. We can't solve the problem without group action. Equalitarianism is understandable, and I empathize, but it interferes with science, with freedom, and with solutions to long, intractable problems. It is the danger. It dumbs down our discourse. It makes it impossible to deal with reality and to solve problems. The truth is the real friend of social justice. We need fear demographic differences no more than we fear individual differences, so long as we promote the appropriate ethical response. The society of our descendants depends upon how we handle these issues. Will we take the easy out, kicking the can down the line? Or will we mature and grapple honestly, judiciously, and cautiously with these difficult but important problems?